You guys are probably listening to this on Saturday. But let me tell you, there's been nothing going on up until we recorded. I don't know, like, knowing our luck, like, probably something will happen, like, after we upload this, or maybe after we recorded this, because, that's just our fucking luck, our luck in life.
There's no DDE topics in the news, is what I should say, because obviously there's news. Iran just fucking attacked Israel, but, Middle East is fucked up. What else is new?
Mm-hmm.
What happens when a country like ours just go ahead and managerially gerrymanders a fucking region to get their sweet, sweet black nectar of the gods? It's just another fucking Tuesday when that shit happens. But that's not a DDE topic. We can't make fun of that. I mean, we can, but, like, I can't think of any jokes off the top of my head right now. And if I do, I'll get fucking blamed. So I don't know if I want to do that. So in light of that, I guess the only thing I can think of off the top of my head is that Dennis, being the very deeply repressed wannabe Italian that he is a big, big fan of the Sopranos. A big, big fan. I have never watched it, personally, but I watched some spoilery episodes in the morning, one morning, the other morning, when I got back from my girlfriend's place. And, can I say something?
Yep.
That show's fucking depressing.
Yep.
That
that's
show
why
is
it's so good.
Really, really depressing. Can I just fucking say that? My mom has gone off on that show plenty of times because what turned her off from it was when they killed fucking Chris's girlfriend, the whole arc of his girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
That shit was so depressing. And when he's fucking dragging around the car like a fucking, kid that doesn't want to go to school, like, yeah, come on. Yeah, come on. It's time. It's like, I'm just sitting there like, what the fuck? This is so depressing. And this guy, chose to it reminded me, honestly, of when all the fucking Republicans, voted to not impeach Trump or in the Senate when that shit was going down, when they could finally be rid of him and, go back to making their party what it once was before Donald Trump destroyed it. But they're so pissed scared of him, so used to that life, and so unfulfilled by the lack of promises that the people above them claim that they're going to make by sticking with him, that they don't do it. And the fact that Chris chose these people who are not actually his fucking friends.
Yeah.
For over that was just like, fuck.
Mm-hmm.
I want to, slit my own wrists, take the blood, put it in my ass, and then shit that onto my own cock. That's how depressed I was watching that shit. Truthfully. And
but great television.
It is great television. When Tony just didn't give a shit and is, rejoicing because, this weight has been lifted off my shoulders after he was, balls deep in, one of his fucking exes. However, many, hours prior. It's this show was just fucking hey, man.
It's something else, for sure. And I think it's kind of weird, though. If we're going to be talking about Sopranos just for a bit today, I've noticed that it's kind of had a bit of a resurgence in, the everyday conscience of I guess maybe not even just our youth, but, just everyone around, they've kind of remembered that the show exists. And, and I think it's also one of those shows that HBO doesn't really push enough, I feel. I think maybe they started to realize that, even though, again, this show was essentially kind of what put HBO on the map, believe it or not. And it made episodic television and drama, actually really popular. And this, people even said, Sopranos set the stage for shows like Breaking Bad and even shows like Game of Thrones to really take off, because this sort of kind of thing, this sort of drama-based episodic television wasn't really that much of a thing until The Sopranos. And to even David Chase's credit, he even kind of said that at first when this show aired, because he got asked, did you think it was going to take off the way it did? And he's like, fuck no, I didn't. It was just it happened just out of nowhere, he said. And at the very least, I think it just goes to show you at least the level of writing and just the level of just fucking amazing just everything of the show. It from the characters and even the actors as well, like just putting their all, the authenticity of like even Jersey in general, and even like of the people living there. Like, you know, as a guy who I didn't really live obviously near Newark and a lot of the other towns that like Sopranos likes to mention, Montclair being one of them, Bloomfield, a couple others. Like, you know, we like Newark, at least historically, even for us, has like it has a very like kind of timelessness to us over here, because Newark was at one point considered the jewel of the state, and like, you know, everyone kind of really like loved to go there. But
that's funny as fuck.
I mean, considering like how, you know, we kind of see Newark now, that's what I mean. Like, it's got that history to it that like I think for anyone who appreciates like kind of New Jersey in general and who's lived around there, like it kind of resonates a lot with them. And, you know, it's kind of weird too seeing like when you watch the opening and you even see like the history there, because if you watch season 1 and, you know, you watch that opening, we don't got no Twin Towers in like the New York skyline no more. And also a lot of the places that like the opening passes through are practically like kind of all gone. You know, we don't got like fucking Easy Pass tickets no more. We literally have like the fucking RFID scanners like up above us that like read our Easy Pass, and we just fucking go, and we don't really like, you know, it don't hold up traffic no more like the way like it did like about 25 years ago. And it's so weird too, like watching it from 2024, because like it's almost looks and feels like a kind of watching history in a way, but obviously it's like a drama, and like, you know, it's fiction as well, so it's not really based on like, you know, any real events. But I think, you know, if you lived around here, and it's so funny too, because like, you know, whenever we think of like mobsters, right, like we always think of like Chicago and New Jersey, or not New Jersey, New York, like big time cities where like obviously like organized crime like was able to flourish like very easily. But, and like, you know, and of course like settings that we've seen in movies and in television shows before. But going to New Jersey, like, you know, obviously like I was always kind of, even for me, like kind of looking back at it, it's like, you know, we watched The Godfather, we watched Goodfellas, we watched like so many like different pieces of like mob fiction, that going to New Jersey was always like a bit odd to me. But then like it kind of then dawned on me just how genius it is, because like, you know, it in a way like it's a setting for one like we've never really seen, like suburban New Jersey, like compared to like the big city like in New York or Chicago, or even like, you know, just really anywhere else to begin with. Like, you know, seeing it like it's so weird, because like that show in and of itself like kind of almost saved not saved New Jersey, but I guess like
saved like, New Jersey.
Well, no, like it like put it on the map for a lot of people, because like, you know, nobody, like everyone who ever looked at New York City never said, "Oh yeah, let me go over the bridge and go to New Jersey for like a weekend or some shit." Like no one ever said that.
I'm sure that helped a lot, Dennis. I mean, it paved the way for like the identity of the state to all these fantastic shows that came after, set specifically in New Jersey, like the Jersey Shore. And the Jersey Shore. And you cannot forget, you know, the Snooki spinoff. Dude, come on.
Part 2.
Look, I love hearing you say all this as a retrospective, really. And that's really what it turned into. It turned into the second you started talking, really, because you're rewatching the show with your girlfriend, I know. As a testament to your point about, you know, why Jersey? Well, think about it. You know, it's funny enough, that might be a testament to the show's success. Because there wasn't one. You know, it was a unique setting. You know, and settings are as important to a show as anything else, where it takes place, beyond just where it is, as well as its time period and whatnot. So, I think that actually helped it a lot. Because another New York one comes around, that show's got to be really, really good. And I'm sure there were a lot of rejected ones by, like, you know, like jack-off boardrooms, like, you know, like HBO or AMC or like, or not even AMC, but more Stars and all those other, like, pay-to-play channels that have occasionally really pretentious, you know, like, boardrooms when it comes to these shows. I'm saying that because these are the same people, or among the same, like, company, I should say, that rejected Breaking Bad.
Yep.
And then Breaking Bad went to AMC, and it was probably the biggest. And there's a lot of blunders, you know, like Avatar was rejected by Cartoon Network, Adventure Time was rejected by Nickelodeon. It's like there was a lot of like where it's like, we fucked up, we should have picked that, you know. But them rejecting Breaking Bad had to have been the biggest one, and who knows why they did, you know. But a part of the reason could have been, and this is all coming full circle, I'm not talking in circles, I promise you there's a point to what I'm saying. They might have rejected it because Breaking Bad might have seemed a little too generic. Oh, down on his luck, turns to drugs, the life of crime, blah blah blah, which Breaking Bad almost was, Dennis, because as a point to you saying, oh, why a show set in Jersey, and me saying it became a unique setting, Breaking Bad was originally just set in California.
Yeah,
it was in LA. It was gonna be like a fucking, LA drug bust, or like life in LA crime and organized criminals, and it wasn't, because they couldn't fucking afford to film in LA.
Yep.
And as a result, the show was rewritten to be in New Mexico for some reason.
Which was fucking pennies and dimes for those guys. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah, pennies and dimes, way cheaper, and look what it did for the show's legacy. It gave it its own identity. The little yellow tints that you see, New Mexico doesn't fucking look like that.
Or no, you know, Mexico in general doesn't look like that.
But contrary to popular belief,
a meme though. It's so funny that like everyone who sees that shitty filter, even in fucking Narcos Mexico, they have that piece of shit filter on the fucking scenes.
Whiplash. In fucking Whiplash, like that goddamn movie, like, oh my god, like, they made J.K. Simmons look like he had fucking hepatitis. He looked like Homer.
Looks a little yellow.
With the fucking bald head, he looked like fucking Homer. He looked like a jacked Homer, just with like abs and everything.
That black shirt just kind of even made him more like shredded too. Like it just. Oh yeah, continue. Sorry.
Not my tempo. I cannot do a Homer. That voice is.
Why are you little? And he just tosses the chair at him.
Why are you little? Like that voice is fucking hard. Definitely one that takes practice. Yeah, but you see what I'm saying that did for Breaking Bad. You know, like it's just made it way more unique. What shows are set in New Mexico? Fargo took off big. It's set in like an isolated remote location, and they saved money doing it too. You know? So I think that setting sort of, I'm not saying setting is literally absolutely everything, but it has a lot more to do with a show than you would think. It's one of those underrated aspects of a production, just like sound design. Sound design is everything, where like if the proper sounds aren't put, where like me putting this deck of cards down, it didn't make that noise, you'd be like, what the fuck? That was so weird, why didn't it do that? And all of a sudden, your immersion's gone. Just from one little interaction like that. That's why Foley artists are really important, right? But I think that, you know, to say that that did really wonders for Breaking Bad, I don't think is an understatement, because it made for those iconic desert scenes and whatnot. They just built upon what they had. And truthfully, I think it was just a genius idea for them to do that. But to what you're saying about David Cross, him saying David that wasn't his... Chase, my mistake. About David Chase... I do wholeheartedly believe that wasn't his intention, not only for like it to be set in Jersey and have that be a standout factor of the show, but for it to also make it like, but for the show also to just be successful in general. Because have you seen that motherfucker in interviews? Have you looked into his eyes?
Yeah.
There's nothing there.
Yeah.
That had to have been his fucking reality, because he seems like a very disturbed person. When you see him in interviews,
I would maybe I can see that, but I can also just kind of maybe I would also kind of say maybe that like I think he has been like just been around enough that like maybe like to your point, like okay, like maybe this is reality. Like he's just experienced a lot of life, for better or for worse.
People write what they know.
Yeah,
so that's the only reason I'm bringing that up. You know.
Yeah, and like you know he's. The character of Livia Soprano, who is, you know, Tony's mother, and just like the fucking batshit depressing, like, you know, bipolar case that she is, like he even said like that was my mother, and like that was what I dealt with like for a good chunk of my life. And like, you know, and you know, to again, as David even said, like, you know, you're gonna write based on I think the best kind of writing is like the best. Well, yeah, sorry. The best kind of writing is kind of be based on like what you've experienced and what you've gone through in life, and like putting that all on like on paper is, and like kind of just like manifesting it on the page is, for me, I think always gonna be like the best kind of writing. And it's so funny too because there's even a scene where so Chrissy, he really wanted, there's like a lot of points in the show where he wanted to go into show business, like he wanted to work with Hollywood, he wanted to like be part of like, you know, that industry, like maybe not go full Henry Hill and like kind of just like, you know, just unveil everything about the life and everything, but there was a scene where he gets like a laptop and like he wants to start writing up screenplays, and there's a scene where it like zooms in on its fucking first line, and it's like got grammatical errors, spelling errors. It looks like a toddler fucking literally typed up that line. And then finally near the end of the episode, like Paulie comes over and like he asks him like what the fuck's going on, right? And Chrissy just straight up tells him it's just like, you know, it's like this fucking screenwriting thing is just like is a lot more harder than I thought it would be. And he's like, you know how many pages are typically in like a major motion picture screenplay? It's like 120. He's like, so how many did you get? 19. And it's been the whole day. You know, it's been like fucking, I think like 2 weeks or so or whatever. And like, you know, again, like
what did you tell him about multiple drafts?
That, yeah, exactly too. So it's just like writing the fucking thing. And the one I'm bouncing around here a little bit, but like the one part of the show that I'd have to say that I really love, and even as depressing as it may sound, is like the hardship of monotony. If I'm pretty sure David probably said it, David Chase like had probably said it a lot better than I did, but like it's just like there's a scene also where like Chrissy and Tony are in the car and they're driving, and they like kind of go and talk about a bit about depression and stuff, and Chrissy has a line where he talks about how like the regularness of life is just like really difficult for him just to like deal with it and all. And I kind of got that. It kind of resonated with me a little bit because
also
like it's because like we all sort of like have like our routines, right? And I'm kind of thinking of it where like if I was putting myself in Chrissy's shoes, and since he's a mobster, he's juggling around not only like his criminal life but also his regular life too, and like a lot of times like one kind of suffers over the other, and for a mobster like him, your regular life is going to suffer for your criminal life. That's just like the way that whole lifestyle is. And you know, there's like this like dread almost throughout like the first season where we like nobody ever looks happy just doing regular things, like going to the store, visiting your grandma, like, or visiting your mom, like whatever, like just like the typical things like a normal person would do. Throughout that show, like everyone just looks hella depressed just doing it. Like they're never like that happy, and you know, a lot of times like mental health is like a big part of the show, and not in like a very preachy way, but it's just kind of in a I think it's more so kind of just bringing to light more of those issues, because I think, you know, by the time of 1999, at least by the show's beginning, like I think, I don't know what kind of strides were made like towards like the betterment of like people who are going through like mental health issues such as like depression and stuff, and like, and even among like a lot of that generation's like I guess among friends and stuff, like usually like they kind of always look down upon anyone going to see a therapist, because it's like, oh, you're a fucking mental weakling, and like, you know, you have to go to someone to talk about your feelings or talking about like, you know, whatever it is you're going through. But now, like, you know, obviously, like, you know, we celebrate the fact that like anyone is going to therapy, because like, you know, that's a big step. And
you think The Sopranos was ahead of its time?
I think so.
Talking about mental health, because Chris is a big subject of that, and all of his friends. Like, even the last episode, the episode before they kill him, they're busting his balls about, or Paulie's busting his balls about, like, how his daughter's gonna be fucking working here someday. Wasn't fucking education matter? And it's like, Jesus, the disrespect. And then he looks around, sees everybody laughing, and then everybody slow-mo laughing, and then Tony especially sees him laughing, and it's just like, fuck, like, these people aren't my fucking friends. And then he goes and kills his fucking AA sponsor, his like screenwriter friend and shit. And is that what you're getting at? Because the show's old. It's from like the early 2000s, and that was before mental health, especially for men, is like super stigmatized. It can still be stigmatized now, but back then, fuck, like that was still around the time where people believed like women legitimately cannot sexually harass men. Like that was when like everyone still fucking thought that. You know what I mean? Very different time. So is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, because like I just want to kind of to like bring focus to the fact that like, you know, it's all, I think, stuff we sort of look at now, like from 2024, like from 2024 lenses, and like it really resonates a lot with us because of the fact that like, especially like, you know, if you kind of grew up in a very like sort of traditional sort of household, and like, you know, with the way like, and all the way that like the father and mothers like kind of would behave, like, you know, as that entails, you know, obviously like, you know, fathers in that sort of setting like usually were like teaching their kids to like, you know, bottle up their feelings and like kind of just like, you know, just be the, as Tony would say a lot of times in the show, the strong silent type. But, you know, I think the show definitely brings to light that whole type is either gone, or at the very least it's like that strong silent type, let's say kind of man or person, like probably still wants to talk about their feelings, or at the very least it's like not as chalked up as everything it is as it sounds to be, like whenever someone talks about it. Because when, you know, because like we even see a lot of guys like on the show that like who we think are like, they're all like very much like damaged people. And, you know, and that's like, well, let's just putting that in that's us putting that in like, you know, they're also an organized crime like sort of lens. But like for a lot of us, like, you know, and for even like a lot of people you may see walking around in your day to day, you never know what the fuck they're going through. Like you really just have no idea. And like everyone has like, you know, a problem or something that they're dealing with. And like you have no idea just like how severe it is. And, you know, and we even see it in the show where like it just looks like, okay, like from at least a glance, it's like, okay, everyone seems to be looking like, you know, they're doing well in life, right? But here's the thing, like, you know, you really don't know unless you ask. And it's the reason why that, like, even in the case of like Dr. Melfi and being like the vocational therapist that she is, like, you know, there's even like one other character in there, and like I'm sorry if this is like
we talk every spoiler, it doesn't
like
matter.
A super spoilery, I know, because but it, again, it's a 25-year-old show.
Who fucking cares? Like,
yeah, but like if you're ever trying to get around to like watching the show, like please, like, if you have HBO, or hey, if you have like a VPN and you want to watch it, like, you know, just for free, by all means, like me and David, like, we're saying like wholeheartedly, go and like watch the show. Like I think it is. You'll figure out immediately why the show took off after the first season. It's just really fantastic television, and it's like stuff that you're gonna really love. Despite the fact that maybe you'll also feel a bit depressed after watching it, but that is the whole point of the show. It's not meant to be like a happy-go-lucky type show, and there is like a darkness of reality of it. You know, attached to it as well. So just know that also going in. Definitely trigger warnings as well, like, you know, for all the stuff you may see in there. Because, like, we even do see, like, you know, a kid.
Titty.
A kid attempt suicide. And you could bleep that out too if you want. But, like, yeah, like, we do see a lot of, like, dark stuff, like, within the show. Like, and, you know.
Like a titty.
Like a titty, yeah, like a titty and pussy. But, and ass. But I guess, yeah, like, as to David's, like, to point, like, yeah, for sure, the Sopranos, again, for a lot of the stuff that they talked about and a lot of the issues that they deal with, is and was ahead of its time, in my opinion, because of the fact that, like, it's, because, again, for one, mental health way back when was something that was kind of laughed at. It's like, if you were a grown-ass man who was going to see a therapist, people would call you a fucking weakling and, like, you know, not so other kind words, because, like, you know, everyone would just think you're fucking weak and you can't just deal with your emotions. And, like, I am in, like, the weird middle ground of that, because, like, I feel as if, like, you should, at the same, like, on one hand, you should be strong and learn to perhaps deal with your feelings, but then at the same time, I feel that if you ever feel like it's getting to the breaking point and, like, you just really do need an outlet, whether to cry or, like, you know, talk to somebody about it, like, I'm all for that too. I'm just saying, though, like, don't just kind of, let's say, if you ever always feel like you're always feeling it's a breaking point, to always go to someone. Like, you gotta have some strength in there too as well. Like, you have to, like, you know, grow that strength yourself in a way.
Imagine those stigmas around mob guys, though.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
the most, like, biggest, like, fucking
it's death for them.
Douchebags, killers, thieves, and various other dootaroos. Like, all types of, like, people in there who, the last people you could ever confide in, where they literally have a fucking ranking system for who's important and who can say shit and who you're allowed to disrespect and who you're not and whatnot. You're just one of the boys. It says peak toxic masculinity, because these guys are just fucking evil. And even if Chris, like, with his ranks and whatnot, he would still have people bust his balls and laugh at him. And while Chris is supposed to be sympathized with, he's still not exactly a good guy. He kills people when he gets mad because he doesn't know how to deal with his issues. He's still...
Or shoot him in the foot for making him wait for bread.
Yeah, that too. Still has all his fucking issues, but it goes to show, like, about the cycle of abuse, which is why I'm very grateful to David Chase for writing what he knew, because he didn't just change the, you know, pace of television with that. He probably helped, like, change some stigmas or made people aware of stuff as well by showing the various extreme of it. There's scenes of racism, like Tony's a kid, like, with his friends, they just beat up a kid for being black and whatnot. It's really fucked up shit in this show, and the point is that it's done in such a harshest reality way, to the point where it's not like, these are the realities of life, but it's like, it makes you feel a little retrospective, a little as to what we can learn from it, or like why these things happen, or what the cycle of abuse is, because you see Tony's parents in the way that they are. And I guess what I'm getting at here is that people write what they... There was something else I wanted to say, but I don't remember what it was, so I'm going to get to this part. People write what they... No, it's not your fault. They write what they know. And... that's for everything. And I know what you're thinking, like, it's like, oh, Sopranos, I guess that makes sense, it's realistic. It's a mob show, you know, like, the mob exists, like, it's realistic or whatnot. I'm not talking about realistic, you know, one of the golden rules of screenwriting is that you don't have to make your script realistic, you have to make it believable. Last movie I saw was Dawn of the Dead. I watched the 2004 remaster of Dawn of the Dead. That's not realistic, it's got zombies in it, zombies aren't real. But, you know, what's believable about it is that all these people, like, suddenly overnight live in a very different world because of something that is way beyond their control. And even though this was before COVID, as people who survived COVID and the pandemic, that hit different, because we all remember waking up in that world where we're suddenly told we can't leave our houses or, like, see our friends and family lest we contract a deadly virus. That actually happened. And you remember the existential torment that people went through, especially guys like me who just had their heart broken by someone who thought there was the love of their life, or was the love of their life at the time. You know, that was the trauma that came back, and seeing these people suddenly in that reality, not able to leave this mall, stuck with only each other, for just waiting to die or for the foreseeable future. We didn't know any better. And so, like, just really, that's what hits different. The little, like, moments of emotional breakdowns and inclinations as to what living in a reality like that is like. To quote Jacob Kruger, who's a screenwriter who like hosts some classes and whatnot, he once said in like a little YouTube short or a TikTok that he made or something, where even in stuff like the difference between realism and, like, believability, one such example of that would be the Lord of the Rings. You know, like, J.R.R. Tolkien didn't carry the One Ring to the spires of the mountain of Mordor, or the spires of Mordor or whatnot, and dump it in to, like, save humanity or whatever. But he did, you know, like, cut his teeth in the trenches of the Somme. And, you know, he knew what that was like. He watched his fucking friends die, like, blown to bits. He, watched people choke under the gas of the German war machine at the time. He saw his friends die. He knows what it's like to struggle to try to achieve a common goal. Mm-hmm. And he knows what it's like, I guess, to feel shell-shocked and whatnot. Mm-hmm. He knows all that. But he knew how to, like, transfer his emotions into something like The Lord of the Rings, which created something special for everybody. And that's what's important about screenwriting. To make sure even when something is unrealistic, in a made-up world, like Middle-earth, where we got hobbits and elves, it's all these made-up creatures and a whole deep lore. It's great. Make it up. Do whatever you want. That's the beauty of screenwriting. That shit's still not going to sell or be as beloved as it is unless there's, like, some believability in it, some human experiences, like some relatability. And that's why even in a show as deeply realistic, if almost to a fault for some people, like my mom, for example, as The Sopranos, hits home with so many people. Dennis isn't even Italian. I wasn't in the fucking mob, but we watch that show and we see the struggles that characters like Chris goes through, and we feel it. And that's what makes it different. That's what I mean when I say write what you know. And when I say write what you know, I don't mean just write realistically, this is my life and this is what happened. Take it, turn it into something else. That's what David Chase did, that's what J.R.R. Tolkien did, and those two shows and movies and genres couldn't be more fucking different if they tried. Really, so.
And one other part that I think the show does very well that I couldn't really put into words until I kind of just read it up right now was that the kind of struggles that, like, the depiction of, like, I guess the struggles of everyday Americans, like, a lot of times we even hear in the show that, like, they're dealing with problems at work, college, even paying for it, and even being a good parent, and, like, all the struggles of that. Like, for what it's worth, Carmela and Tony are not good parents. By all, by every sense of the word, they're in fact terrible parents. And, like, we even see, like, because truthfully, if you've been, not even in Jersey, right? If you've been, like, to other friends' houses, you've probably met a Tony and Carm probably once in your life. And, like, you kind of just, like, know all of the implications of that as well. And, I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. Like, my folks, I definitely lived, like, before that housing crash, like, we pretty much lived in a pretty upper middle class, like, sort of lifestyle. And like, seeing like the show and, like, just the even way, like, if you ever been, like, around your neighborhood, and, like, if you ever even went to a lot of those neighborhoods that have, like, those 2-3 story houses, and, like, then the real, like, kind of well-to-do, like, white middle class, like, kind of neighbors, like, that we see in The Sopranos, like, you've probably seen them also in real life as well. And, like, it's so weird because, like, throughout the show, like, we know, like, Tony, of course, he's rich. Like, he's got, like, a house on a hill in a cul-de-sac with a pool, huge driveway, like, like 3 cars. Like, it's just very much like, from an American dream sort of standpoint, like, it's just like, oh yeah, like, he's made it, but we also know he's in the mob, so, like, obviously, like, not all of his money, like, the very fact that he says that I'm in waste management and he has a house like that's insane. It's like, it does not compute at all for anybody. And we even see, like, that
you really believe he brought in $100,000 a year hauling lumber? He was fucking dirty, ma. He was dirty.
And, like, we see that whole, like, wealth disparity throughout the entire show too, because, like, a lot of Tony's guys, like, they don't obviously live in, like, big houses or mansions like the one that, like, his family lives in. And, like, it's very much, it's kind of like subliminal messaging in a way, because, like, we even see a lot of times, like, where like, the kids, like, Meadow and AJ, like, there's a lot of, like, comparison that is always done when it comes to, like, living in that sort of setting, because, like, you go to, like, other cities or towns, like, around the world, right? And even like there's like this weird like rat race that I think is very much just almost intrinsic in like suburban areas like over here in Jersey. Like everyone's like trying to get like the bigger house or like the nicer apartment, and like, you know, it's always just kind of like, you know, kind of like, hey, like look at all my shit. Like, you know, it's like that scene from Thor Ragnarok. It's like the guy's like, behold my stuff, and it's like 3-bedroom, like, you know, 3-4 bedroom apartment, or like 3-story fucking house, long driveway, big yard, like, you know, just all that land and everything. And around that time in the show, it was kind of it took place not in the 99 sort of setting, but like at least towards like the earlier 2000s. We started to see a lot of unused land over here in Jersey actually being heavily bought out and like actually being turned into like, you know, huge neighborhoods, as in like the houses were fucking huge. Like you went to like even past like Fort Lee, and like you go to like some of the more remoter areas that were closer towards like upstate New York. A lot of it was just like, I'm talking to like near Demarest, and like even like if any of you aren't from Jersey, like obviously like this probably has like no bearings to like you at all, but like there was a period of time where like New Jersey like had, let me just say, a lot more nature in there, but a lot of like, you know, people like decided to buy up that land and like decided to make like, you know, huge like 2 to 3 story houses and like sold them off. Like even like early 2000s money was like basically millions like in today's money. And you know, there's even a scene
have to do with the Sopranos.
So what I'm getting at is that like
sorry,
no, it's okay, because it's tells that bit of history too, because there's a whole scene where like a guy from New York buys a house in Jersey and decides, I want to live here. And that was also around the time when a lot of New Yorkers, even before like what we had, like the sort of migration we kind of see today, we already had like that sort of migration even a decade or two, like years, like a decade or two ago. A lot of New Yorkers started to kind of like move away from the city and wanted to live in the more quieter suburbs. My family was no different. Like we went towards Clinton, New Jersey, which is nothing but fucking grass out there. And if you even go today, and even back then, it was nothing but fucking grass. But like, it's just so like interesting to see, because like this is all stuff that like I grew up with, like not like growing up with mobsters or whatever, but like at least like seeing that sort of shift, and like, you know, it's sort of a reflection in it of kind of like the shift that we're seeing today nowadays. A lot of New Yorkers like things starting to move away from the city, and like again, like it's just another form of the migration that we kind of saw like from years back. A lot of them moving away, like they're trying to go and like live in a lot of like the bigger apartments. New Jersey's also starting to smarten up in the way that at least areas like Fort Lee, they're making nicer apartment buildings that a lot of these obviously richer New Yorkers can probably afford no problem. They apparently don't mind the commute, not to mention even New York taxes also the way it is. It's crazy expensive just to even live in a fucking shoebox even in New York. And so it's like for that reason, like, you know, I guess where I'm getting at and how this, again, as David so mentioned, how this kind of sort of ties into The Sopranos is that, like, you know, the show not only brought the spotlight to a state that never really had the spotlight to begin with. Before, like, The Sopranos and before, like, a lot of other things that sort of, like, kind of came around. I'm not even just talking about Jersey Shore. Like, you know, before all of that, like, you know, New Jersey was, like, just the state everyone knew that was next to New York. There was really, like, to a lot of people, there was nothing special about it, like, at all. And now, like, and this is sort of terrible to say, and I really wish, like, you know, like, if there ever was a Sopranos that took place in the modern day, like I think it would be fairly interesting, because I think even everyday life today is just as difficult as it was even back then, as it was depicted in the first show,
if not harder in some ways because of inflation.
That, and also just the way social media is as well. Like, think that, like, in it of itself would be an entirely different beast.
Housing market is completely different. Like, it was before the fucking crash. Before it was literally impossible for our generation to ever in our lives own a home in this state, let alone this country, really, but Jersey especially. It's true. It did help put that on the map for that. And It did it in a better way than Jersey Shore, which is funny enough because both shows are about stereotypes in Jersey. One is about mafia and the other is about these Guido-ass, like, party boys and girls and whatever. Mm-hmm. But, like it or not, it did. And it did, like, bring that about on the map. Even, like, the intro was, like, very scenic. Mm-hmm. It's the same for me. Like, I drove by, like, the drive safely fucking thing in Elizabeth all the time on the highway. We see that on the Smash tournaments and stuff all the time. And it's like, it's an interesting way to feel seen, which is what a lot of states in this country don't really have. So it makes me think, what show is going to put Delaware on the map as no longer just, the state that's below New Jersey that nobody lives in? You know what I mean?
That apparently has no sales tax, though, believe it or not. Like, it's pretty fucking crazy
wait,
down there.
Wait, what?
They
got sales tax?
No. None. Oh, wait. Okay, I'm probably fake news right now. Let me look that up. Let me clear that up.
Is that, like, certifiable fake news? Because I was about to say, you want to become the Triple D experience real quick, Dennis? You want to move down to fucking...
Delaware has no state or local sales taxes, making it a very tax-friendly choice for residents and visitors alike. But I like to imagine, to offset that, it's probably a bit expensive to live there. Just saying.
And Delaware, probably really?
If they have no state or sales tax, they gotta make money somehow.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I just imagine that nobody lives there and that they just kind of give up.
Because it's like after you go past Point Pleasant or like Cape May, it's like, what the fuck? Like, why would I ever like want to go past that? It's like as if nothing else exists. Like after, like for a lot of people in Jersey, at least, like the properties like around here and like kind of just, it's like very much like if you lived here for a long time, you're probably never gonna leave. Like, truth be told, like,
yeah. But yeah, honestly, I'm sure I'll watch the whole thing through eventually if I can just fucking not get clinical depression.
I've been depressed watching that show. I've actually gotten depressed.
I had like a bit of an existential crisis yesterday after I got back from my girlfriend's place about shit that I'm not going to go into on this podcast.
Yeah.
That was me not watching The Sopranos. Well, no, I watched it when I got home, and then I was like extra depressed. And I was like, fuck. Guy's drinking water because he was an alcoholic, and they're still busting his fucking balls about that. And then the second he dies, Paulie was like, you know what? Should have fucking treated that kid better. Like, yeah, maybe you should have. Maybe you fucking should have.
And like, Jesus. That's the thing though too, because that's even the worst part with Chrissy's story is that he just wanted like a friend he can like just confide in. Like, it's the most like simplest thing, and it's like for a lot of us, it's like something we would never even have to think about. Like, hopefully, But like, for him, it's just, and like the way that, and the sort of lifestyle he lives in, it's so tragic because like he just can't, like, there's no way he can. Like the people that he works with and that he's friends with, quote unquote, just would never let that happen. And in the case of like Paulie's like whole, like, shitty eulogy, it's like as so Paulie, so does eloquently, like, just in his everyday doings in that show. He fucking stupidly realizes that, like, oh yeah, maybe I should have treated that kid better. Maybe I should have like been there for him. Like, maybe like I shouldn't have busted his balls like as much as I did, like, before he died. And there is, of course, like just an influx and even overdose of like how the whole message of like masculinity and even like kind of just like the toxicity of it too, like, is just kind of like seeing that from a modern lens, like from 2024. It kind of really I think does a job where it makes it even more repulsive than it even is, like seeing that like in the way that it's portrayed in The Sopranos, because like we already get told a lot, at least shows made today, where it's like, oh, it's not good, like, obviously toxic masculinity is not good and you shouldn't do it. But then when we see a show actually like just from start to finish be nothing but that for 6 seasons, and even then just seeing the harms of it and even like the dangers and how it even like affects like other people around you, and not even talking about just like, oh, I'm macho man and stuff like that, but it's more just like bottling up your feelings and like kind of just not talking about it and just letting it stay bottled up to the point where like you either take it out on someone or like you kill somebody outright, like because like, you know, at least in a mobster, as a mobster perhaps would do, just because of how, like, let's say mentally unstable they are, like in Chrissy's case especially. Like, you know, it's just like one of those things where, again, like I think The Soprano, like even before its time, like it was way ahead of its time, just nailed it on the head, where it's just like, you know, again, the whole show itself is kind of showing you the darkness of reality, if that makes sense. Because it's a very, very, very grounded show with every little bits of paranormal shit like that happens like every now and then. And of course, like the crazy dream sequences that we see from Tony as well. And like just the way that show even portrays dreams, it's like the most like, you know, again, like fever dream ass like way of like kind of portraying that. And it's very similar to like kind of how we see dreams as well in our own heads, if you can remember your dreams. I can't remember my dreams, so like I probably have maybe some of those trippiest dreams ever, but I just probably don't remember them. But I think also, like, I know it sounds like perhaps like we're rambling a little bit here, but like I think again it's one of those shows where I thought a few shows that kind of came close to showing that like little darkness of reality. I've seen a couple shows that were kind of close. There was one show that I do want to watch that is called The Wire, which came out I think a little bit before The Sopranos, and it was kind of like the proto show that like made dramatized television like actually really entertaining to watch. I've heard, of course, like just good things about The Wire in general, so it's like, you know, it's one show that I definitely want to try and get around to watching. But The Sopranos was my first show when it came to like seeing like, because like, you know, obviously I watched Game of Thrones, and like I didn't watch The Sopranos when it first came out like in 1999. My parents probably would have never let me watch it like thing around that time. And you know, it's like I've watched so much drama like on television like for so long that like I think The Sopranos will always have like a special place in my heart, just because of how it portrays ordinary life and just like not only the beauty of it, but at the same time like just the fucking monotony and like almost darkness to it, because of the fact that like for a lot of us, like normal life can be very just difficult in general. Like I'm talking like, oh, if you're a parent just paying bills, paying for your kids to college, like there's just so many of those things that may seem little, like, you know, when you think of like, let's say bigger picture sort of like fantasy dramas and stuff, but like for them that is like their reality. Paying for my kids' college, paying for the house, even just like having everything together is just a struggle in and of itself for a lot of people. And like it just, and The Sopranos does a thing where it just portrays that in a way where like it really just resonates with anybody living an ordinary life, because like that's what a lot of them are fearing. Am I going to be able to pay the bills this time around? My kids fucking hate me. My wife hates me. Or like, God forbid, my mother hates me. And like, I just like kind of also by extension hate the world. And I just want to like, and he, like, there's even a scene where Tony even says like, oh, like I see a guy who just smiles and walks down the street. First thing I kind of want to do is just kind of punch his face and like kind of rip his throat out. Like there's like their whole like, the whole talk of just normal life in that show. It really, I think, would resonate with anybody, because like maybe perhaps like you're not in your head, but at the same time, like I think there is a thing going around where I think for even especially young males and even males in general, like you know, as the years go on, like, you know, for us, like we are kind of getting the help that we need for our, like, let's say whatever mental health issues we may have. And you know, if you have one that you do need professional help with, like, you know, there's again no stigma nowadays where like, oh, you're going to be called a mental weakling because you're going to see a therapist. But again, this is also like now coming from a time around in the late 90s to early 2000s where this was not like, this did not have like the mental health awareness month bullshit that we kind of have nowadays. Like, I think this was all stuff that people back then literally like thought was just either not real or was a racket that was just scamming people. Like that was like the way of thinking back then. It's literally like kind of crazy that we've seen that transition now. And I'm just, oh yeah, and I guess like just to finally put like a pin on this, like to end it. Like real life, I think has a lot of struggle attached to it, and I think like just because we think like, oh, going to work, paying the bills, and like just keeping the lights on is like a very like kind of just such an ordinary thing. It's because of the fact that I think it is ordinary, like that, for a lot of people, like that's what they're struggling with. That in and of itself, like, is just their everyday life is a struggle. And that itself is straight up depressing to even think about, because like I need to work my ass off and literally just chip away until I'm just a nub just to keep the lights on. Like that's the sort of like kind of like vibe it has like in that show. Because everyday life, again, I would like to imagine for a lot of people, everyday life is hard. Like some people I'm sure out there are struggling their fucking asses off. And like sometimes like a reprieve of just you sitting on a couch and watching TV is like the most beautiful thing in the world. Like that's like the duality of it too. That's like, that again, that's my 2 cents on that. Like
throw in the mob element where, them fucking showing any sort of like, mental health or showing any like sort of like, mental health struggle is more than a weakness. It's the kind of thing that could get you like killed.
Yeah, straight up.
That's part of the reason Chris died, because like, Tony eventually saw he saw Chris's mental health as more of a liability than a problem, just as a friend, which really puts everything into perspective for you and reflects the golden rule, in my opinion, that, actions always speak louder than words, really. Even in the darkest places, like in the Sopranos, you can find like some of the like shiniest, most like brightest like lights of enlightenment in the out of a reflection of the darkest places in the Sopranos. You know what I mean? It's not all for nothing. It's just hard for some people to like scratch through the surface and see like the beauty in it. Just how like I am for certain other genres, I guess. But even though while I do think there are some objective truths to reality, like I don't know how much of a reflection of, or how much we can learn from movies like Dawn of the Dead, which I watched the other day, which my girlfriend or whatnot, but I'm sure there is stuff there, and I did take some things from the film, but stuff like Sopranos, which really like stands the test of time because of how they're written, it's just like,
If you want to be depressed for about 6 seasons, watch Sopranos.
For sure, yeah, if you want to be depressed for 6 seasons.
But if you also want to just see great television, watch The Sopranos. Like, that's, I guess, the main thing I could tell you guys. Like, it's just a fucking great show. But, I guess, a bit of a trigger warning. There's a very good chance you'll probably get depressed after some episodes. Just letting y'all know.
Indeed. Yeah. But if you instead want to watch a podcast, or listen to a podcast, you can check the rest of ours out. You can check them out at youtube.com/Nintoonist. You can like and comment and subscribe. All that good stuff. If you prefer listening platforms, we're on Spotify, where you can give us a quick 5-star review that helps with our SEO, as well as Apple Podcasts, if that's your preferred listening method, if you use iPhones instead, blah, 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 all that good stuff. It's really going to bother me that I can't remember the last point that I had going on, but I guess as a testament to Dennis, The Sopranos is a really good show. We can learn a lot from it, truly. It reveals a lot of, the right ways to go about certain types of things by showing you all the wrong ones. I guess, if that makes any sense, as well.
I should have said that too, because like I was just so much like I was pigeonholed and just like so fucking focused on like how like dark reality is, when it's like, you could take that as a lesson at the very least. Like that whole show, you can take it as a lesson to like not do the shit that they do if you want to like, at least, let's say, do well in life. Like,
well, like you mentioned, it's a dichotomy. Really, you can sometimes be two sides of the same coin, which I don't know if The Sopranos is the best example of, but it's sort of like a non-comedy version of like people like just being assholes and doing the wrong things and just showing you in full detail, why that's wrong. But I suppose maybe that's just the two of us as people with, consciousness or consciouses watching it. But yeah, we're not going to take up too much more of your time. I got to go. We hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Stay tuned next week. We don't know what we're going to talk about. We don't know what will happen. But we'll be here for it. Whether you fucking like it or not.
And make sure to get your gabagool near your deli.
Yeah, definitely get that too. Just don't eat too much of it. It's a lot of sodium.
It's literally nothing but fats and nitrates.
Yeah.
Like, there's no health benefits for you if you eat gabagool. Just know that. You may die of a heart attack if that's all you eat. Just say it.
Maybe.
Woke up this morning, get that gabagool.